From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. Andrew with you once again, joined as always by my co-host Derek, aka D4 3. Derek, the 2026 season is winding down, but ball never stops for us when it comes to video games, or talking about them, for that matter. With that in mind, please tip us off.
Yeah, today we are talking about online multiplayer gaming through Parsec, as we are connecting to play games on Sundays with Kid Cash, WizCard Rush, and King Kong Fresh. I'll also briefly touch base on another less positive online experience with my fourth playtest of NBA The Run, which releases on June 9th. Other than that, we will just discuss whatever comes to mind. So let's start by discussing my experience with NBA The Run, Andrew. I participated in my fourth playtest with this game over the weekend, and I gotta tell you, out of the 3 hours I spent on the game, maybe one was a decent time. Can you guess why?
I'm going to take a wild stab at this and say other people.
Yeah. So I connected with randoms the whole time. You weren't available. You were sleeping, understandably. You're on the other side of the world. Our times didn't line up for this. Q wasn't available to play with. The Live King wasn't on, so I connected with randoms the whole time. Remember, we talked about this on a recent episode. We stated that when the game gets opened up to more of the population, less of the hardcore basketball gamers, that it could get messy.
Absolutely.
That the games may not be as fun, etc. Well, that kind of happened. So in the fourth playtest, the game got opened up to the console crowd, and no codes were required. I believe that anybody could just download the game and play it and be part of this playtest. For about 1 hour out of the 3, I played with people that passed the ball. They would throw oops. They would overall take smart shots. They would give effort on defense. They were team players. Pretty solid experience all around when you play with people that know how to play the game and will play as a team. The other 2 hours were with people that never passed the ball, that had absolutely horrid shot selection, taking threes from almost half court, getting blocked constantly because they wouldn't pass the ball, never throwing an up fake, never taking it to the hoop. If they took it to the hoop, they would oftentimes just take it right into traffic and get stuffed. Just an absolute nightmare playing with these people. And the other piece of this is, for the people that did try to execute the dribble moves in the game, they never used them when they should. They never used them with a purpose to get around a defender, up against the defender to, brushed off of them like we used to do with Street Volume 2, and then, attack the rim or shoot a three or whatever. They would often over dribble for no reason. They would break their own ankles. They would fall to the floor. It would be a turnover, and they would never learn. They would just keep doing it on almost every possession. And that's the problem with this game not having a viable offline option or a fun single-player mode or a mode that you can play with somebody in the same household on the same screen, and not having the ability to play local head-to-head, etc. It was just a bummer for most of this session because of those issues. The other piece of this is, when you play with people like that, you never win. So for the hour that I played with those guys that did, share the ball, played the right way, etc., we won multiple titles in the NBA The Run tournaments, which is what these playtests are designed for. They put you into a tournament. You have to play about 4 or 5 different games to get to the title game. You have to win all of them, and then you win the title game. We won, I believe, 3 tournaments with the players that played the right way, but we basically lost every single game with the guys that didn't know how to play or were selfish. So yeah, I think the game can play well, and I think it can shine at times and be fun when you play with people that know how to play it and play unselfish. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well. And that was one of our biggest concerns, as you said. Once this gets out into the wilderness, once you do have those people who aren't as knowledgeable about basketball or basketball gaming and play a bit selfishly, don't play the right way, it's going to be a problem. And there's no alternative. It's all online. You may not always get to play with your friends online. Obviously, that option is there, but people aren't always going to be available, as I wasn't, as Q wasn't. So you are going to get paired up with randoms. And just like the wreck in 2K, well, look what happens. Also a bit concerned about that dribbling piece, Derek, because I mentioned this when we talked about our impressions a couple of shows ago, that I was struggling to make moves with Wemby. And obviously Wemby can dribble. And in a game like this, pretty much everyone should be able to pull off the basic moves. You might have some players who can't dribble as well as others, break their own ankles at some point, stumble, lose the ball, whatever, just like NBA Street. But you want everybody to pull off pretty basic moves with regularity, basically. It kind of concerns me if these dribbling moves fail so often with people just trying to pull them off in general. Because this game is supposed to be pick up and play. And I think in large part it is, but that concerns me a bit that people, newcomers to the game, people who are still learning the game, learning virtual basketball, real basketball, whatever, are going to struggle pulling off these moves. To that point, what are the new dribbling controls like? Because I believe there's now a dribble move button in addition to what we had before.
So yeah, they added new dribble moves to the B button, think Xbox controller, circle on PlayStation. Basically, when you hit that button, it can execute a crossover or an off the heezy or a slip and slide or a sham god. The reason why a lot of people fall on their dribbles, from what I can tell, is because they're trying to execute a dribble move when their stamina is low. But the problem is that the stamina runs out too fast, right? So that's why I think it's happening so often, is somebody thinks, hey, I've only sprinted a few feet up this court. I should be able to do a dribble move now. So then they start to do a dribble move and it makes them fall down. Right. So it's not always on the end user. Like, it's not always their fault. I think that the turbo needs tuning, but how many times do you need to fail at it before you realize I shouldn't be doing this? Right. So like, they would go down the court, they would try to do a dribble move and their stamina would be low and it would make them fall down. They would get the ball in the next possession and they would try to do the exact same thing and then they would fall down, and it would just keep happening. And I'm like, you're killing us here. And we would end up getting blown out because, of course, they're not going to pass either. They're not going to say, this isn't working, so I'm going to pass the ball, or I'm going to, I'm just going to run in for a dunk, etc. So there was no adjustments, it felt like, right? The other thing that's weird to me is that, and I think it's because maybe we're playing with the younger crowd that didn't play NBA Street. One of the biggest things with, for example, NBA Street Volume 2 was going for oops, right? If you're off ball, you want to be running towards the hoop and jumping for oops. And in this game, it's actually really easy to jump for oops. Even if your stamina bar is basically empty, it allows you to jump for it, right? But I only played with a couple people for the entire 3-hour session that were actually jumping for oops. I was the only one doing it, and that's really weird to me, right? I think a lot of the population that was playing this game on the fourth playtest maybe never experienced Street. Maybe they don't understand the importance of jumping for oops, etc. But I just found that really, really odd because, like, it was a big deal in earlier Street games.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It could also be some conditioning from NBA 2K, because NBA 2K's My Career mode and the connected experiences unfortunately suffer from it as well as a result. But My Career is very player one oriented. You've got to grind up your player, you've got to look for your stats, get them so you get enough VC to upgrade. Obviously you don't have to do that here, but it does instill that player one mindset. And you see it online in 2K that people are still going for their stats. They're not looking to make that pass when you see a teammate cutting or wide open. They don't have that court vision or the unselfishness. They're just looking for theirs, looking to make the play, looking to get their stats. When you have that mindset, as a lot of younger gamers do, I think, because it is instilled by NBA 2K, it's carrying over to the online scene where you have to play as a team, where you have to share.
Yeah, well, people are complaining on the NBA The Run Discord that steals are overpowering. They're stating, swipe steals are overpowering. Before it was pushing. Now that pushing has been toned down, more people are swiping, and they're getting a lot of steals that way. But part of the problem is that you need to pass the ball, right?
Yeah.
And this is the way it's always been in these type of games, whether it's Jam or street. If you're going to stand there and dribble in place, you better be executing the right moves in order to not get swiped, or you need to make sure you create separation with that defender so you don't get swiped. And a lot of these people that are picking up the game, they're just walking into a defender and not expecting to get it stolen. Or they're executing a move that doesn't really make sense right in front of a defender, and then they get picked, and then they're wondering about it. You got to pass the ball, right? When we were winning titles during the fourth playtest, it's because we would get the rebound or we would be passing it in, and we would quickly move the ball up the court. We would maybe execute a dribble move that made sense, and then we would pass it immediately to the next guy. Like, you got to move the ball in these games. Think about how often you have to move the ball in NBA Jam on Fire Edition, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
How many games it was like basically you and I having to touch pass to each other in order to beat these challenges. Yeah. And in order to win these games. So people got to learn to pass the ball. During this playtest, I used Wemby, the Greek Freak, Anthony Edwards, and Kevin Durant. And I did that because I wanted to see the different experiences with the different types of players. And I think this game could really shine with the different archetypes. With Wemby, you can't just shoot in front of him. You can't just attack him without thinking about it. He is going to swat your stuff back. I showed a possession where I had 3 blocks because people kept just trying to shoot in my face. I like that aspect of this game. Be careful when you're up against Wemby, because you're going to have to change your strategy and work around him. And then, I used Kevin Durant, and he's not going to block shots as well as Wemby, but I was lighting it up from 3 with him, and he has better stamina, and he's a little bit faster, so I'm able to execute some dribble moves, and that's great. Anthony Edwards, just absolutely awesome dunking. I get blocked less with him, it seems, and I can just throw it down on multiple defenders. He's also fast and has better stamina, so I can pull off more moves. And Greek Freak is probably the best all-around player that I've used in the game. I can catch shots at the rim. Not quite like Wemby, but if somebody shoots it, I can time it like I would on Street Volume 2 and snatch that ball out of the air. I can still execute dribble moves with him because his stamina is high. And I can attack the rim with a vengeance. I will state that he's not a strong shooter, but all around, he's my favorite player to use in this game. But yeah, I think the game can be fun, and it can really shine when you play with people that know how to play the right way. So when this game releases, you and I are both going to be picking it up. More than likely, I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to connect with you and one other person in the community whenever I play. I did see that Bucky T, who loves listening to this show, post some great highlights and whatnot. He was playing this on console, so maybe we can connect with him. Maybe Kid Cash wants to jump on with us. Maybe QB1120. But that's kind of the way I'm going to attack this game. I'm going to try very, very hard to not play with randoms and just play with you guys.
It does seem like the way to go, much like 2K Online. Absolutely. And that could be a lot of fun. We're definitely going to give it a go. But that is a worry, of course, because a lot of people are going to be playing with randoms, and that is going to lead to a negative impression for the reasons you mentioned. So that doesn't bode very well for the game, if it comes down to those negative experiences playing with randoms. And we've talked about the necessity for having that offline play, which is going to be a huge risk for this game, because it's going to rely so heavily on the quality of your teammates, of online play, the stability of the connections, all of that stuff. Not having the offline mode, as we've said before, is definitely going to be a risk. But you confirmed with the developers that when there's a disconnection, when a player drops, either because the game crashed or a connection error, that player is not replaced by another player, they're replaced by the AI. And the AI, as you noted, doesn't play very well. So that doesn't really bode well for an offline mode for me. It suggests that the AI isn't very strong, and to have that offline campaign, you need to have strong AI. So that's something they have to work out for the online scene as well, certainly, but definitely as far as having that offline mode, that single-player campaign, or that local co-op campaign, whatever, you're going to have more robust AI. To that end, Derek, there are a couple of ways of handling dropped players in games like this. NBA The Run is handling it similar to NBA 2K, where they're replacing that player with AI, which can work, once again, if you do have that robust AI. With a game like Rocket League, you have players who are waiting, jumping into a game in progress. I think either way can work as long as the AI is robust and you've got a good matchmaking system. The way it is at the moment, I think it would be best to have a player who's waiting jump into a game in progress. Do you have a preference there?
Yeah, I have a problem with jumping into somebody's game if they're already halfway through a tournament.
Sure.
Right, so they have that tournament structure and all the playtests that I've participated in, and I'm thinking that more than likely that's going to be the big thing with this game. Otherwise, you'll just be playing one-off games, right? I'm not 100% sure. We'll see what happens on June 9th. But no, I'm not a fan of being thrown onto a team halfway through a tournament. So I think that there's a lot of work to do as far as making the AI better, to make them smarter, etc. And this also doesn't bode well for modes like knockout solos, right? You know, they have like a solo mode that you can play online where you're playing against AI. From my understanding, you can only control one player and then your two teammates are also AI. At this time, I think that the goal for them on release is to have it so you can control all three players on your team against the AI. But yeah, from what I've seen from AI players, I'm a little worried about that experience as well. Like it's probably not that strong at this time, and there's probably a lot of work to do on it.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So yeah, the game's releasing on June 9th. After it releases and, we get our hands on the official release and we play it, and we see the Steam reviews and all the other reviews and all the what people are saying about the game. We'll record another NLSC podcast about this game, and what will be cool is the game will be officially released at that time, so we can talk about it that way. But Andrew, I wanted to close the show talking about our new Sunday ritual, which takes place at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We use Parsec to connect online and play whatever classics come to mind with Kid Cash, WizCard Rush, and King Kong Fresh. Last Sunday, it was the Super NES version of NBA Live 96, where we created Michael Jordan and put him on the Bulls, followed by a game of NBA Live 10 using the Magic versus the CPU Pacers. This week, we connected on NBA Live 10 again using the Spurs versus the Hornets. And when we're playing NBA Live 10, we're playing either 3, 4, or 5-player co-op, depending on how many of us are online. Had to go back to Live 10 again, Andrew, because it's been so fun. The game we had today using the Spurs, which was Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, Richard Jefferson, Matt Bonner, Michael Finley, etc. What a fun time. We ended up winning that game. Duncan put up 22 points and 8 rebounds. Ginobili had 24 points, I believe 17 for Tony Parker. But yeah, solving that puzzle together with people that are working towards a common goal, people that are unselfish and trying to play the right way, just night and day better as an experience than what I was dealing with for much of the time online on NBA The Run.
Yeah, NBA Live 10 has been so reliable for us, playing against each other, playing 2-player co-op, and now 3 or 4-player co-op. An absolute blast. It takes me back to the original online team play from Live 08 and Live 09. Live 10 did bring in Adidas Live Run, so they changed it up a bit with that pickup atmosphere. But the original online team play mode, taking control of an NBA team, everybody controlling a player. Unfortunately, NBA Live 10 is limited to 4 players, maximum 4 players, so we couldn't have the 5-player run, complete online team play, if you will, but still an absolute blast. But yeah, I think NBA Live 10 is always going to be in our rotation. So pick up and play, obviously, very generous on the jump shots, not in an unrealistic way, in a very accessible way. Jump shots feeling very viable. You encouraging me to shoot, me trying to be a bit more aggressive in that second game.
Well, it's not just you. And not just you. I was trying to encourage Kid Cash and King Kong Fresh to shoot as well. I think that when you play with other people that you enjoy playing with, oftentimes a couple things happen. One, you overpass, right? And that always happens when we start our sessions. We are always overpassing and we get into a hole as a result. Number two, you always want to try to take the best shot. And I think that sometimes in that case, it makes somebody scared to shoot. And I think that you are hesitant to shoot in a lot of games. You will usually want to attack the basket. I could tell that Kid Cash and King Kong Fresh were not confident shooting outside shots when we first started, right? So my goal when I messaged you guys in our Discord chat was to motivate you to take outside shots, because in a game like NBA Live 10 and many other video games, it's a necessity in order to win games. The interior defense at times on NBA Live 10 is pretty strong. Outside shooting is pretty forgiving, like you stated. And once we started shooting outside shots, when we were pulling up with Tony Parker and pulling up with Ginobili and hitting that mid-range shot with Richard Jefferson and shooting mid-rangers with Tim Duncan and a three with Matt Bonner and another mid-range shot with him, it diversified our attack, and we started scoring a lot more points, and we ended up winning that second game versus the PC. But yeah, I think those are the two biggest challenges when you're connecting with other people that you know, at least in my experience. One, overpassing, and two, a hesitance to shoot the ball.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of NBA The Run, right? Playing with randoms, playing with friends, it is possible to be unselfish to a fault at times. Absolutely. No, I'm guilty of that. So that was great for us to settle down, take that on board, be a bit more aggressive, take those open shots, realize, look, we all understand that we're sharing the ball, we want to win. If you've got the open shot, take it. And we do have those outside shooters. NBA Live 10 does allow you to hit those open shots. So absolutely take them. And it worked out. And that second game was a lot better for it. But speaking of attacking the rim, also had a very satisfying drive on the break with Ginobili going up and dunking it over the Hornets there. And that is something I love about NBA Live 10. I covered NBA 2K10 in Way Back Wednesday last week. Really warmed up to that game. I've been playing a bit of that recently. Obviously, not just to cover it for Way Back Wednesday, but because I wanted to revisit it myself. And 2K's strength has been its number of animations, the basic dunks, the quick flushes inside, the standing dunks, things like that, more shots in the paint. That animation variety really benefited 2K during that generation, while it continued to be a weakness for NBA Live. That being said, NBA Live 10 has some great animations. The CPU, Mo Pete, hit a really nice finger roll against us in the first game. I don't think I remember seeing that animation before, that kind of twisting finger roll around a defender. That looked really nice. Very cool when you see an animation like that you haven't seen before or don't see very often. But those poster dunks in NBA Live 10, that lefty poster by Ginobili, man, that was satisfying to throw down, Derek.
Yeah, that looked great. There was also a nice adjusted shot that I had never seen in that game before by Emeka Okafor.
Oh, yes.
Where I contested him with Tim Duncan, and he used his body up against me and turned once he made contact and threw it up over his head, and it went off the glass and in. Is that something that Emeka Okafor would do? Maybe not, but it looked awesome, and it's an animation that I've never seen. So that game keeps surprising me. We also had a couple nice random alley-oops in there, one from Matt Bonner to Tim Duncan right under the hoop, etc. So, yeah, that was a fun session. But I also had a really good time with NBA Live 96 for Super Nintendo, getting Michael Jordan on the Bulls. For those who don't know, for the Super NES version, all you do in the edit player feature is type in Jordan for the name, and then boom, all of his stuff pops up, his appearance, his vitals, etc. And his ratings are already in the game on the Bulls. He's a roster player as the shooting guard. So it puts him right in the game. He ended up having 42 points, 5 assists, and 9 steals, and just some awesome highlights, some good three-point shooting from Kukoc. You had a really nice spin dunk with Scottie Pippen that was in the top 10 plays of the week, and you discovered that there's actually a dribble move button in the Super NES version, which is really cool. But, yeah, we had a lot of fun with that game, and we blew out the Knicks.
Yeah, not sure how I overlooked for so many years the fact there is a dribble move button in the Super Nintendo version, and apparently the PlayStation version as well, which we covered a few shows ago. Gonna have to revisit that game, Derek, and play with those controls. Again, overlooked for all these years, for me anyway, probably because I was playing the PC version more than any other version, and it has the least amount of buttons, because it has to have that 2-button joystick compatibility. But knowing that, Derek, even more reason to dust off those two versions of Live 96.
Yeah, I think the simple gameplay just bodes well for a co-op experience, even with 5 users, right? And because the game isn't overcomplicated, it has the necessary staples of basketball. So, snappy passing, right? You can throw alley-oops. Are they always planned? Absolutely not. But, they're in the game. Rebounding is simple. Shooting is simple. And I think it just all works. And, we played NBA Hang Time the week prior. And that game is a little bit more involved, a little bit more complicated, but it still hit the spot, right? And I still think it's a really fun experience with 4 humans playing 2-on-2 and whatnot. And the reason why I say it's a little bit more complicated is it's a little bit faster paced. And there's a little bit more involved, it feels, with playing defense, with timing blocks and whatnot. I think that team play is just as important, if not more important, in NBA Hang Time as it is in NBA Live 96. But yeah, I love these experiences with multiple users online, with people that I know.
Yeah, and as we said on a previous show, that Super Nintendo port of NBA Hang Time, a very strong home port, pretty faithful arcade port for a 16-bit console, so it plays really well. Before we get too far past NBA Live 10, I did want to say it does keep coming back into the rotation. There is something fascinating about that game. Maybe it's the big jump it made over 09, the promise it had, what could have been if they didn't foolishly go with the NBA Elite 11 revamp, but there is just something about that game, the way it holds up, the way it plays, that is so inviting. I would love to find a way for us to be able to mod the PS3 version on the emulator, just to add some classic players, have some classic teams. I know we do the makeshift classic teams with fantasy teams, and that's great, because there's actually quite a few players in the free agent pool and still in the rosters as of the 2010 season that allow us to do that. But if we could add a few extra players, add some legends like Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Julius Erving, Kareem, etc., if we could just mod that game a little bit, get a little bit of a minimalist, well, not minimalist, because I would like to add some art updates, and I think there is a way through the emulator. If we could mod that somehow, cobble something together, we could have even more fun with that game.
Yeah, I think that would make us spend even more time with it, so we'll keep an eye out for that. I think that the atmosphere in NBA Live 10 is top-notch.
Agreed.
I mean, we were playing with the playoff atmosphere setting on, and just the crowd is so loud. The arena sounds, the commentary is so exciting with Marv Albert and Steve Kerr. Yeah, I personally think that NBA Live has always had better atmosphere than the NBA 2K series. Between the crowd noise, the player chatter, and even the commentary and whatnot, I've always preferred live in those ways, and I think you would agree.
Oh, for sure. I'm still surprised that 2K hasn't borrowed that idea, the atmosphere settings, being able to have playoff atmosphere at any time, NBA Finals atmosphere at any time, because they've done a pretty good job themselves of having special overlays and other atmospheric touches in 2K. And of course, the era's presentation is amazing, and what they did with the Jordan Challenge and NBA's Greatest, of course. It surprises me that they haven't made that setting accessible, because that would be great for content creators, who they love to cater to, obviously. So yeah, I am surprised they haven't borrowed that idea from NBA Live, because yeah, that was 2009 that NBA Live did that. They brought it back in the 8th gen games as well. Would have thought 2K would have borrowed it by now.
I agree with that. I do want to clarify something, though. NBA Live 19... I think they took a step back when it comes to the atmosphere, but then also the glaring weakness of the commentary team.
Terrible.
Specifically Jay Williams, who absolutely destroyed any good atmosphere the game could have, because he is absolutely terrible on the mic. I hope if NBA Live ever comes back that they don't bring him back as well.
Yes, I'm not exactly a fan of Jay Williams for some of his takes in real life let alone the virtual hardwood. But yeah, as much as I've warmed up to NBA Live 19, that, like you said, a glaring weakness. Ed Cohen and Jay Williams, such a huge step back from Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy. Definitely disappointing there. I know why they did it. They were easier to get, to record new commentary, to drop in during the season, those dynamic updates, but it just wasn't worth it. I'd rather have stale, quote-unquote stale, Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy than fresh, supposedly fresh, Jay Williams and Ed Cohen. Yeah, definitely a mistake. NBA Live made a couple of mistakes, to say the least, with NBA Live 18 and NBA Live 19, but yeah, that commentary change was definitely disappointing.
Yeah, and as it relates to the atmosphere, they made all the arenas darker. I feel like the floors weren't as detailed. I just was not a fan of the look of NBA Live 19 in comparison to Live 18, 16, 15. I think there were multiple steps back with the atmosphere. So before we close the show, Andrew, I wanted to let our listeners know what the next two NLSC podcasts will be about. We'll be going over our NBA 2K27 wish list on the next show. And then the following week will be all about NBA The Run, because the game releases on June 9th. The game will be out. We'll have our hands on the official release. We'll talk about the Steam reviews, what people are saying about it, etc. So, yeah, that's the next 2 weeks of the NLSC podcast.
And that'll be fun to discuss. You know, it comes around quick, Derek. These preview seasons every year feels like the last game has just come out, and then the season is over, and we're talking about a new one coming along. Definitely have some ideas for NBA 2K27 and how it could capture my imagination, keep me hooked, more so than NBA 2K26 ultimately did. And yeah, NBA The Run, you know, we've had positive things and negative things to say about it as we've shared our honest opinions, Derek, on this show over the past few weeks. But we are intrigued by the game. We have had fun with the game. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting our hands on the full version, the retail version, and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, and I am looking forward to the release. I really hope that they're taking all the feedback to heart as it relates to the offline experience. It's been brought up quite a bit on the NBA The Run Discord, in the feedback forums, in the general chat. You've seen it mentioned a bunch online. Hopefully they're working hard on that, and we'll get something offline for post-release. I do want to also let our listeners know that Jalen Brunson is in the game, and he was part of the playtest, and he does dribble with his left hand. However, he only dribbles with his left hand, unless you're executing a dribble move. So there's no like pushing the ball or switching hands while you're dribbling up the court or anything like that. So I think that's another weakness in this game. There's been feedback related to this on the feedback forums that I've left, and then other users left, that state, hey, you know, let's get these guys switching hands on the dribble, because it's awkward that they don't do it. You know, if you're right-handed in the video game, so think like Anthony Edwards, he always has the ball in his right hand 100% of the time when he's dribbling, unless you push a dribble move button. And Jalen Brunson will always be dribbling with his left hand unless you execute a dribble move button. So hopefully that's something that they can work on as well post-release.
We will see, and fingers crossed. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for tuning in, and a reminder that you can catch us every week on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Also, both we and the NLSC are on social media and would appreciate a follow. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep a look to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for all things basketball gaming. So, thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.